Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to day one of the CBOC convention. Here we are. There's a lot of us on the screen today, and we're going to start with our expert panel coming together and talking a little bit about the IO industry and sharing with you some of the successes, some of the struggles as well that they've had along the way. So, Jeremy, who have we got on the panel today? I know Dr. Ariana Thompson may be joining us today, as well as Devin. And Devin Delmonico, I can already see you there. There she is waving. LindaAnn Rogers, I'm hoping you're here on the many fast screens in front of my deck. Deborah Collazo, Lee Crowson, Dr. Rajanique, Modeste, and Jeremy. I'm sure we might even have more people popping on as well.
Yes, that's correct. And you got them all, Tom. You got them all.
Pays to study. So, Jeremy, let's actually start. You know, we've talked a lot about how, IO is the oldest profession that you've never heard of. And I have to be honest, because I'm probably the only non-IO here today. And I'm an actor, your humble servant here at CBOC. But I never even heard of IO psychology until 3 years ago when you and I met on another online video world where we were talking about online work and how to adjust and transfer over to it. So can you give us, to start out, just a little bit of history and not only how you got involved, but how did you find success?
Ooh, that's a good question. I didn't even do notes for this one, Tom.
You never do notes, good. Jeremy.
So a lot of some of you who know who I've had. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I was muted. I've had private conversations. I've always taken the entrepreneurial route. I've worked, minus a couple of jobs, like right out of college. I've worked in corporate for a very short period of time. I've owned a couple businesses, but what I've done is I've always kept my eye on the ball. And one of the biggest questions I get is how do you get external clients? And that's one of the reasons that we started to. CBOC was built for community and belonging for the IO psych, so we can fill in the gaps as a support system for students or graduating IOs. And also for experts to get together to work on their branding, to work on client acquisition, to work on systems, all these different kinds of things for those who want to be external consultants. While also, sorry, every now and then, sorry, everyone, I have to go and click mute if somebody's things off, so I get a little distracted. And now we're branching out towards the business sector as CBOC and universities and also recruiters. But for me, it was really about the continuing education. A lot of times, whether or not you're going to get a PhD at some point. So just keeping striving. Teaching others was always a big help for me. I've taught a variety of university classes in IO or related. And when I did work in corporate, I really just, went hard at it. And I tried to use everything I learned, try to be as much of a change agent as I could, feeling around in a highly political organization, which is one that I worked in. I took the route of do great things and ask questions later, which I don't suggest to everyone, if you can do it or not and get away with it. And I was able to, luckily I had bosses that let me run free and reign free. So that actually shaped a lot of what I was doing, because in that, and I look at all these different experiences as basically, so yes, I have a PhD, but I look at all these other experiences and I basically say to myself, well, that was another PhD. So some corporate experience, that was another PhD. Everything with CBOC, that's another PhD, because you learn so much. And the key, I think one of the keys to success is getting yourself on track first with time management, with what you want to do and where you want to learn, not getting distracted, which is very hard, taking chances, accepting opportunity without accepting different opportunities that come your way. A lot of people say, you got to get used to saying no. I agree with that. You got to know when it's not a good thing to do. But there are some things when you have to do them if they might be beneficial to you just in terms of networking. There's a book out by, I think it's Adam Grant. Somebody can put it in the chat. I know you know the one I'm talking about, where if you help people, it's like nice people finish last or something like that, but they finish. Where my thing has really been, how do you add value? Give and take. Thanks, Chelsea. My thing has been adding value. And I started off, I've never been a networker, for example, but I started off basically with just writing lists. Like I am a guru at networking, and I'll never become that, but I write these things down to keep me on track and being helpful to others. I think the first things I did when I started my second consulting business was I just started writing blogs. And then I got recognized by the owner of the HR, the LinkedIn group for HR, the one that has 1 million plus people in it, Linked HR. I became a manager in that group, worked on all these different projects, and then things just start to happen. So in terms of a key to success, my road was a little jagged. Lots of, I don't know if I call them failures. They were failures. I think of them not as failures, but it was really as learning moments and the ability to shave and change. And you find out what's rewarding. You help as many people as you can. And that's just my personality type too.
Right.
I do things, ask questions later, sometimes fly by the seat of my pants. It does get me into trouble, not as much as when I was younger, but it still probably gets me into a little trouble now. Tom.
Well, speaking of trouble, Dr. Destinee, let's go to you. Because Jeremy's given us a really good synopsis of, how he got involved and stuff, but you were successful before you even joined CBOC. So what was it like in the world where, hi, I'm Dr. Destinee and I'm an IO psychologist, and people just stare blankly at you?
Yeah, I mean, they still do that, even though I think people know me more than, I would assume they don't. But, it's funny. CBOC has been a huge transformation for me in a way where I've been able to really connect the dots with my passion. My background is all military connected. So my mom, brother, dad served the military. I served in the military. My husband's currently serving in the military. And all of the things that I have researched and all the jobs that I've pretty much worked in post-military have been connected to the military. And I have found so much correlation between the transition that people go through from the military. Everybody that goes into the military leaves the military and they go through a transition. And when they go through that transition, they have a little bit of identity crisis, right? They're like, who am I? I have a first name. Like I have skills. Like I have to go from like team to from we to me. And and guess what? I feel like there's a lot of correlation between that experience and what people in our fields kind of experience when they're trying to figure it out, when they're trying to figure out who they are. Like I have a first name, I have a skill, I have to find a niche, I have to find oh my gosh. And so I think because I've been so familiar with working with the community of military, that this community is very similar in that experience. And so for me, the takeaways that I can provide to all of you today is we're going to talk a lot about finding a specialization because people want to know that. But I always say, follow the community that you love. Right. So for me, the military community, and if I think about the military community and how the field intersects with that demographic, wow, there is so much potential there, right? Not only can I speak to the military community, but I can speak to organizations. I could speak about the value of a veteran. I could speak about I can go on and on and on and on. So same for you. Instead of focusing so specifically targeted on a niche area that you are interested in, reach out, branch out, and you will find that all of these, and you will also find in that branching out, your specialization. So I accidentally found certification space and I love it now, sometimes, most of the time, but I love it because I'm able to take my specialization of certifications and say, hey, organization who's providing a certification, have you thought about targeting it to the military audience? So you see, once again, I'm overlapping. So my advice to all of you is to really just figure out that demographic that fuels that passion that sent you to this field in the first place.
Let me ask you, because I've, in my involvement over the last 2.5 years with the IO psychology community, there are a lot of ex-military who become IO psychologists. Now, is it something about the military and your experiences there, or for you, was it you had to take that path alone when you did the transition and you want to just help others get through that?
I think that, mine was personal on my own, because I ran for the military for a few years and I found them. And I think some people do that, especially women who are like more family. Like I got out to be out of the military to be with my family. And so I was like, I'm running and I'm not looking back. But then I found myself looking back. But if we're seeing that there's so many people coming from the military, moving into IO roles, that is not an accident. That should be happening because honestly, we have a lot of skills that are transferable into the field of IO. And I shared a little bit about the history of organizational psychology, but the earliest use of IO psychology was actually during World War II and World War I, for the soldiers, helping them figure out where they would best fit in the workplace within the military. So there's a history there. And I think that we just need to get better about understanding like the roots of that and then understanding the transferability. And that really goes for all of you. You will hear me say, if you haven't, I talk about IO-y things. People do IO-y things. So whether you're going through grad school, whether you have experience or you don't have experience, you have done some IO-y things. And that's where we have to get better for ourselves about making those connections.
And I like the tag IO psychology won the war. I think we should add that to the website somewhere. Speaking of another former military who went into IO psychology, Lee Crowson. Lee, hop on.
Thanks, Tom. I actually have to credit Destinee because she's the reason I found CBOC. And I tell you what, for those of you who are students right now or early career, this is kind of an exciting time. I graduated with my master's, 27 years ago, something like that. And Destinee Prete was the first IO psychologist I met about a year and a half ago. I mean, I may have met one, but I didn't know, and so I saw her on LinkedIn and and I got to talk to this woman. and so we connected on Veterati, which is a mentoring service, and she introduced me to CBOC, and she kind of tricked me because she said, "Hey, why don't you join this panel on Thursday and come?" And she didn't tell me ahead of time that it was a podcast. And so the next thing I know, I'm podcasting, and I'm like, check me out. Wow. And, when I joined CBOC, I was doing my intake with Jeremy, and I was kind of grousing like many do. I spent all this time and money and got his degree, and I hadn't used it. Rah, rah, rah. And Jeremy's, stalking my LinkedIn page going, dude, there's IO all through this. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And he starts pointing to stuff. We did this and did this and did this. And I'm like, holy cow, I did. Woo. And so unlike many people in the field, I mean, most of my stuff is actual experience based. I haven't done a whole lot of research in, several decades, spent, a career in the Navy, used it every day and didn't even realize what I was, because I didn't think of it in those terms. And then, got out, joined CBOC, got to talking to IOs, doing the podcasts and figuring out I have experience in this stuff. And, it was a pretty amazing voyage of discovery. And, and of course, what like Destinee said, coming out of the military and the transition and figuring out where you fit. It's like, wow, I got more tools in my toolbox than I thought. And, it's only been in the past year and a half that I've actually seen a job posting that said IO psychology or desired degree IO psychology. So I'm excited. I'm excited about where things are going. And, I'm excited where this group's going because this is amazing. 155 people in the room right now. That is amazing. I'm glad you're all here. I hope you'll connect if we're not. Also, a side gig, which I can also credit Destinee for. I will warn you, if you connect with Destinee, she loves to shove people out of their comfort zone. And so sometime last year, I started the IO Psychology pop-up networking because she kept poking me at it till I did it. And we're going strong, and so we'll have another one next week, and it's fantastic. I know a lot of people here I've actually met through that. So if you want to get, have some actual chat, come join us. connect with me on LinkedIn. I post it every week. It's called Pop Up because it's based on my schedule. So it's usually Thursday, but not always. So, it was not initially intended to be as regular as it's become, but it's been a pretty fantastic thing. And I'm just kind of rambling at this point, Tom. Was there a question I was supposed to answer?
Not yet, but I just need to check because you mentioned that you were Navy, and Dr. Destinee, you weren't Navy, were you?
No, she's Army.
Army. Oh, Navy Army. I always love that football game. So maybe the two of you can get a little competitive over the next 3 days, and we'll declare a winner.
Oh
and
my!
If anyone from the Air Force is out there, please join in. So Lee, what was it like for you, that transition, and are you working with veterans to help them transition?
Yeah, actually I am. I'm a member of a couple of different groups that we work with veterans, helping with transition and providing resources, camaraderie, sometimes it's almost like group therapy at times. And I'm part of the military connected IO group that Destinee founded. So that's good stuff going on there. When I came out, like I said, Destinee was first in line when I had no idea there was even a market at that point. So I ended up going into I'm working in the defense consulting space right now, and I'm working in operations. And one of the amazing things about IO, I like to refer to IO as the Swiss Army knife of psychology. Mm. We stay away from the counseling, but everything else is fair game. And I do employee development, I do org development, I do change management. My official title is operations manager, but I'm kind of I'm kind of like Mikey. I'm dating myself there. Who's going to do it? Give it to him. So that's kind of what I do. But for those of you who are struggling with your niche, because like I said, IO's huge. I would say don't stress about it. Figure out what interests you. If it turns out not so much, try something else. And as you go through your career, your niche will define you. You can do it intentionally. Don't just wander around and bump into things. Some people do that successfully. Other people just end up with bruised shins. So just try the things. If it doesn't work, try something else. And as you go, you will narrow that niche until you become the expert in that field. And I expect all of you to do great things. You're already starting. You're here with us. So, that says a lot about you. So
it's a very good start. And LindaAnn, I see your hand up. So why don't we go to you next?
Good morning, everyone. It's morning for me. So I just wanted to build up. I wanted to follow Lee, which is a
it was a tough thing to do, following Lee. Thank you for stepping up.
But she does it so well.
I wanted to build on what both Dr. Destinee and Lee were saying about because IO is such a broad field, it's really a challenge for some people to find out where they want to be and where it fits for them. And so one of the things that I suggest to people is just start noticing when you're talking about your work or what you're studying or whatever it is, what is that thing that you always end up talking about because that's your passion, right? That was what interests you the most or what you feel good about or feel like you have the most information on. Just start talking about that and notice where, what you end up talking about most often, and then follow that a little bit to see where that might take you. And if you can build on that, because it's a comfort zone for you, obviously, and we can really build on what our body and mind are really telling us naturally. So I would not worry about trying to identify some niche or focus area out there from the 100 of different possibilities that there might be. Just focus on really what you're already drawn to. And then other things might open up for you. You might be talking to someone and they as Dr. Destinee said, once she started branching out, things became, she became more aware of certain things, but you have to start somewhere. So I really suggest that you look at what you naturally are drawn to, and then learn how to translate that into language organizations can hear. Because so much of what IO isn't what the organizations are hearing to, that they need to pay attention to. So figure out how to translate what you're doing into those key words that organizations are hearing these days.
And let me just ask you, because you're an HR professional. You've also been an educator. You've written. You have your own companies. You've done a lot. But most of the people that are going to be joining us over the next few days are IO psychologists. What is that relationship between HR and IO psychology like today? I'm sitting here going, geez, if I'm HR and I'm in an organization and all of a sudden an IO psychologist walks into my office and they're now part of the team, I might be a little suspicious. So what is the relationship like, and is it in a good place right now?
Well, I think there's an enormous relationship between HR and IO psychology. I don't think people realize that. I don't think IOs realize it, and I don't think that human resource realizes it. I just had conversations, a couple of Pathfinder conversations recently, and one was somebody at a PhD in data analytics, and how does that relate? Well, I was able to show him an article that has a list of 200 different metrics that focus on HR. Okay, so that might be in a larger organization, but they need somebody to really know how to analyze the data they're trying to utilize, especially now that that AI is going to be driving data driven decisions in a lot of organizations. So there's a huge relationship between HR and IO, and I help people when I talk to them through CBOC, and CBOC is such an amazing organization. It's helped me enormously as well. And so I help people when I talk to them see how IO translates into the organizational world so that they can become integrated. It may not be an IO position, but there's ways to get you integrated into how organizations function now until the evolution happens.
CBOC, not just for IOs anymore.
May I for a second?
You may.
Yeah. So what LindaAnn, so what's interesting about we have a great bank of CBOC experts, and we also, so LindaAnn and Devin Delmonico are our resident HR gurus who are just gurus in the HR space. And then we have some hybrids like Brendan Grass, she's an IO HR hybrid. So we make sure that with our experts, we're really covering that full scope. And of course, we've got like Tom for presentation, speech. We've got Cynthia Lieberman for brand building and media. So basically everything that somebody could want, we've got experts for that. When LindaAnn says Pathfinder, we have a Pathfinder program where IOs that are new to the field or looking to get into the field can become a member. And one of the options is monthly mentor calls with our experts. So that's what they're referring to. Tom, Rajanique is up next. Fun fact about Rajanique. You know our logo? So the CBOC logo, how it has the little dot on the side. So it's basically like IO. You've got the purple little I, and then the dot of the I is the little O, and you've got the psych symbol holding it up. So it's basically like the individual is holding up the organization, which is the O. But it was Rajanique's idea, because at first we had it just on top, so it looked like an I. And it's just been amazing ever since to have it on the side, because it just adds that bit of action. It's the I is holding up the organization. It's amazing. So thank you, Rajanique, for getting our logo to be where we love it. So anyway, Tom, back to you. You can get in it.
And I think it looks like a rooster. I like it.
That would have been the other one, but we settled on this one.
I think through our conceptualization, it was the testament that the people are the ones that run the organization. So that's really the symbol of why that O is there. So thank you for that shout out, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
Well, and look, let me ask you, Doctor, what has your journey been like as an IO psychologist, and how has it changed your life?
That's a really deep and broad question. So my journey started off, just so everyone knows, I got my undergrad in business administration, and then my master's in counseling. So my love for people and organizations has always been there. I didn't know IO was a thing. I knew I loved psychology and business, but I didn't know that IO was a thing until I did my master's in counseling and started to research and investigate us. And I said, I have to figure out how I can marry these two. And then when I did some more research and found IO within the doctoral program at Capella, I said, this is it. I read the program requirements and all the classes that it entailed, and it just choirs were singing, angels were speaking to me. It was just meant to be. So got into the doctoral program and loved every minute of it. Now my journey to get my doctorate was quite rocky because, as everyone knows, getting your PhD has its ups and downs. But once I came out of the field, and Jeremy knows this story too, is that I didn't know where to go. I had no network of people to lean on. And all my mentor told me was, just find some people, go out on LinkedIn and find people. Well, I didn't know anyone. I got connected with, I believe it was a couple of people, and they connected me with Jeremy, and I said, Jeremy, hey, I want to do anything, just whatever projects you have, I'll volunteer, I'll do whatever. And CBOC was in the middle of that, and here we are. I've been loving the journey ever since I got connected with Jeremy, and we then met other people from his network, and I brought in other people that I started meeting up with that had the same issue that I had, that they didn't know where to go, what to do as IOs, newly IOs from graduate programs. And I thought that was just, unfortunate. There is a huge organization that has, a membership, but it just didn't have the touch points that we needed as individuals, and be able to get into this field, know what to do, who to network with. It was just a lost type of thing, to figure out where to go. You were on an island almost by yourself. So out of that was CBOC, and I'm so grateful to be here, and what, Jeremy and Destinee has been doing, ever since. So that's my story.
It's a great story. What advice would you give? Because, as you're speaking, I'm thinking there's one thing I've discovered is, there, as you say, there's lots of IOs who were now in the summer, they've just come out of graduate school and they're looking for employment. And also there's a lot of people who have been IOs for quite a while now, but they're just maybe transitioning to their own organization, or they have this degree, and they've been sort of a little bit working with it, but really don't consider themselves full-time IOs. So what advice, with you getting involved in CBOC and how it's helped you, what is some of the advice that you would give people about getting involved with CBOC and some of the things that you can take advantage of?
Yeah, there's a plethora of things, right, that CBOC holds in terms of happy hours, stuff that's, I'm terrible with names, things that are going on through the week where you can connect with other individuals who are IOs. There's, sometimes we have game nights, and that's great. So we're not always in that academic or business space. We're just letting our hair down and having some fun, and just really having that connection point. Because again, you can feel like you're an island by yourself if there are no other IOs that you can speak with and connect with, or you just want to network with individuals just because you like networking, because you would, having other people who aren't in the same field as you is great to incorporate into your network. So there are many, many opportunities to get involved, such as Pathfinders, as Jeremy mentioned, and those other, the podcast. There's so much to name. Jeremy can give you the list, or Dr. Destinee can give you the list of what all there is to do. But there's so many opportunities that you shouldn't be without a touch point of being connected with IOs or other people that are like-minded within your fields or in different fields.
And you're not only a great IO, but you're an outstanding business person as well. So
Okay, I'll
how
take
often,
that.
well, how often do IO psychologists go to you? I'm good with the IO psychology, but I need some business help.
Mhm. So you're asking if people just want to know in terms of how to run a business, what to do, and
I want to start my own consultant business. Where do I even begin?
yeah, I mean, CBOC is a great place to begin at, because we can give you that foundation of resources within your state, how to get registered with your state. And then once you get registered, maybe some certification that you're looking at, like Dr. Destinee has mentioned, she's a guru at, but there are some state certifications that you can get if you're women-owned, minority-owned, disabled veteran. There's just so many certification that you get to provide some credibility that you know what you're doing and you're an expert in your field. And then there's some nationwide certification that you can get. So I have my SBA women-owned small business certification. You can also get your 8A through SBA, as well as your economic disability certification through SBA as well. I don't know the entire acronym, but I believe it's like EDVSB or something like that. But yeah, we can help in providing that foundation of where to go, what to do, what steps to take, as well as some resources that are within your state, such as your P-tax if you want to get into government contracting, such as the community business partnership if you want to get more funding for your business or take some classes that can help you with government contracting and other things like that.
Well, thank you very much for that. Deborah, I want to come to you in a second, but before that, Jeremy, this popped into my mind as Dr. Modeste was talking, but I remember we had a conversation about what you can call yourself in different jurisdictions, and you can't call yourself an IO psychologist in some state. Can you explain that to me?
Basically, it depends on your state. You can't call yourself an IO psychologist unless you have a clinical degree. So like Dr. Patricia Delgado, she can call herself an IO psychologist because she actually has a PsyD. So she's got a clinical, which includes licensure. So she's gone through licensure. So to call yourself any kind of, that's why you notice our terminology. It's always IO psychology practitioner, IO psychology consultant. And that's the guidance that we get, right out of grad school. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that call themselves psychologists. I doubt it. I doubt anyone's beating down their door, putting them in handcuffs or anything, but it's just, you're not supposed to do it. You can get into legal ramifications, especially if you're contracting with a client. And if any of you are external consultants and you're contracting with a client, do make sure you have, like, in your MOA, something that says, hey, by the way, although I hold a PhD in psychology, nothing within the interventions I use should be construed as therapy, mental health, anything like that. And I have the exact terminology somewhere. But make sure you include that, because that's very important. We have got to know our competencies. We've got to know the APA ethical codes. And we also just have to be, smart about it, because there's not much that, and we've also got to know, like, the scope creep. And especially when you're doing executive coaching, have a really hard line between what is therapy, when to suggest somebody seek a qualified licensed mental health counselor, because we're not it unless you've got that clinical background. However, even if I did, there's no way I would do the same thing with one single client. I wouldn't do business and then mental health with the same client. So yeah, just different things to look into, but it's all based on the state and state licensure. I don't think in the US anybody can, or at least in the connected states.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jeremy, and that explanation. Deborah, so let's get over to you. How did you get involved with CBOC, and was your working with LindaAnn, were you guys doing that before CBOC, or was that no? Well, tell us about that.
I would love to. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. So I came to know about CBOC just because I was searching the internet, scouring the internet for some connection and some, belonging. That's the truth of it. So I really connected with what Dr. Rajanique said about feeling like an island. So I graduated from my master's degree. And by the way, here in Puerto Rico, with a master's, you get a licensing, like you have to go through the same licensing that clinical psychologists do. So I took that test, and that's why I used the psychologist part in my intro. So just wanted to clarify that it definitely depends on your state. And in our case, well, this is Puerto Rico, we're a kind of a weird in-between territory. But I graduated from my master's and then I just felt very alone. I just didn't really know where to go next or how to really start. So for the first year, I was studying for my license, and I was figuring out what I could do and how I could do it. And I scoured the internet, I found CBOC, and I didn't meet Jeremy right away. So I signed up for the expert membership, but it said it was full. And I was like, oh no. So after that, a few months passed, and for some reason, Jeremy and I got connected. I think I wrote him a message on LinkedIn, and he's like, yeah, sure, let's connect. And that was it. Like, that was the first thing that really opened my world to this community, to this just world of IO psychologists and IO practitioners, and even, just HR professionals and other professionals that are coming together in this way. And it was like, I found it, right? I found a place that I belonged. I was so welcome. So by Jeremy, and then Dr. Destinee wrote like a message, and then everyone that was in the expert panel also wrote messages. And I just felt like, oh, wow, like I am connected to these people. And then I started going to the Work Cookie podcast, and you could speak there. And it's just very easy to feel bonded to this community. It's very easy to participate. And then I was in one expert meeting. To answer your second question, I was in an expert meeting. We do that about every month. And I think LindaAnn or Dr. Jeremy were like, let's do a leadership event. I feel like this is something that we need. Does anybody want to participate with LindaAnn on this? And I was like, I'll do it. So we've been working for about a year now together. It's been a really great working relationship, and I would have never been able to meet LindaAnn and let alone work with her in this capacity if it wasn't for CBOC. So I'm really grateful for that.
It's great. That's one of the great things about the community is you're starting to see now the cross-pollination where people are starting to work with each other, build projects, little side businesses, put some money in your pocket. It's great. I'm not sure if Dr. Ariana Thompson is with us. If you are, pop on. There's 154 people on here right now, so unfortunately I don't have everyone on my screen. And I know that Devin Delmonico had to step up for a while, so I don't believe she's with us anymore. So Jeremy, here we are, and for everyone on the program, these are your expert panel. These are the people who during the events will be popping in. They'll have some questions. They'll try to keep the conversation going as well. And also you can reach out and join us as well. If you have any questions you would like to ask of any of the panel that you have met so far this morning, just raise your hand and we'll get to you. Jeremy, how are we doing?
We're doing good. We got 5 minutes until this particular session's over. And also other experts that'll be, so not all of our experts are panelists for each of the sessions. They chose which ones they wanted to go to. So you'll also be hearing from Dr. Juliet Nelson and Dr. Ariana Thompson, and also Dr. Patricia Delgado. And I don't think I'm missing anyone after that because everyone else is here. And then also, I think it's I think it's on Saturday. We have a Pathfinder member panel. These are members of our Pathfinder group. But we'll also mention kind of what maybe think of that when Deborah Collazo was talking. We do like even when we onboard people to memberships of the organization, we try to do it in an engaging way. Either I or Destinee we schedule a call, like an intro call, and we usually do it within like a couple of days of joining so that we can meet each and every individual member, point them in the right direction. We send a video of the whole membership portal, whether you're an expert member or Pathfinder, a video of it, so how to navigate it with the voiceover and everything. So we really, which is another reason why we have a wait list, because those things take time and we want to make sure everyone gets a good experience. So we really do focus on that, because after all, it is the experience. And that's actually something that we're going to talk about in the next session with the driving the field of IO. So I think we can open up for questions.
One of the things that I've started to notice with CBOC is I'm starting to get emails now where people are job hunting. Like people like CBOC is finding vacancies. People are contacting CBOC going, I'm looking for an IO psychologist. And you're now starting to contact the membership and going, hey, if you're in Florida. So is that just something that's happened lately, or is that something that's going to continue to grow with CBOC?
That's going to continue to grow, because we did put a couple of teasers out there. I think you notice we're not that big. We're not like the big marketing. We don't do a whole lot of, marketing. We're more just like grassroots, that kind of thing. So we're not like, hey, in your face, except for these past 2 weeks, we've been extremely in your face. And you're like, what are these people doing? But we really wanted to get the message out about this event. And we're going to start doing that. We're going to start more on the marketing aspect, because I think there is some value there in terms of some value add. But one of the things that's going to make that big difference, and I talked about this either now or in the previous session, I don't recall, with this service package that we have for recruiters looking for IO talent, which gives them a really engaging way to market and find the IO talent that they need. So we've done a couple of teaser posts like that, and we actually created a recruiter blog that's on the recruiter website. That's actually open to the public. But what we're doing is we're going through the empirical research, and we're also getting into information, not just the empirical stuff that's, not everyone loves reading study results and whatnot, but we're also adding books like, hey, here's a cool book and here's what this says, and that's in the blog. But we're helping recruiters understand the best way to hire IO psychology talent. We're helping to educate recruiters on what are the challenges, the needs, the fears. How do you best communicate? What are our passions about? Whether it's time management, specifically related to us, I can't remember. We just did a 3-part blog series on building their talent pipeline and how that's important, especially with the IO community. We did an IO post or a blog post for them, or one coming up with how to handle a large pool of candidates, because there's a lot of IOs, not as many IO jobs. So we're trying to be that resource for recruiters to take with the packages, we take a lot of the heavy lifting off of them, and we do it in an engaging way. But even just with the blogs, it helps them feel, again, more like what we try to do, pull them into our community, which is, again, something that I'll talk about in terms of when we talk about in 1 minute. I'll talk about the same kind of thing where we can parallel these strategies to build the brand awareness, of the field. So yeah, people are starting to catch on. We've got big plans that we're not going to share it because they're ironed out. We don't want to jinx ourselves. I see Destinee smiling. We've got big plans for the basically finding everyone jobs. I'll just put it that way, and having a full engine there. But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, and just like that, our first session has flown by. 45 minutes in the can, an additional half hour before that. So it's just, and this is the way that 3 days is going to go. It's just going to fly by.